So I'm out here in the field where the heifers spent the winter, and just looking around, it doesn't look like much. But the reason I came out here is, I overseeded this, and it doesn't look like anything's growing, and the birds have been wandering around here. But the closer I look, I don't see, now maybe some of this is some of that millet coming up, little tufts. But I spread a lot of millet seed out here. I am seeing a lot of turnips and radish. So yeah, if you look really closely, there's a lot more green out here than appears. So hopefully this rain and then some warmth will kick this off so it starts regrowing better. But yeah, it is coming along. It's some of the heavier, denser packed hay covered areas, there's less, but in a lot of it there's quite a good amount of seedling growth. It's Tuesday, the 23rd of June, just after scraping out or squeegeeing the floor of the barn, trying to relieve the biblical amount of water that fell in overnight. The rain, 2.5 inches between 10 last night and this morning. Rain's tapered off. Looks like it may stop, and we're getting a wind, which is going to be great because that'll dry out the fields faster. That means tomorrow morning, I'm going to go over and cut carons. I'm afraid the grass is going to be lodged right down on the ground like it is everywhere else here. It means it's a challenge to cut it. But I've got to get it off. I've got to get as much done Wednesday and Thursday, because Friday is going to be a soaking wet day again, potentially. So, yeah, I'm just here checking on the cows. I'll move them into that paddock tomorrow. Looks like they've got plenty to eat in here. Go on up the hill, Nettle. And I gotta find the heifers and move them now. Come on, ladies, let's head up to the barn, milking. Head up now. Come on, Lottie, Libby, Lana, let's go. See if I can maneuver the heifers to where they need to be and still get them access to some water. If I close this gate here, come on, Trixie, up, Bramble, up you go. They'll be able to get water here, so that's cut off there. All right, it's just a matter of, right now they're having to go all the way out and around, and that's not good. Okay, so that'll get them here. Oh shit, I can't do that yet. Yeah, they'll get out. I can't do that can't do this until they're where they need to be. Oh, no, there's a gate there. All right, what am I thinking? I didn't take that fence down. All right. Running the heifers as a separate follower group has been working. Just got some logistical challenges, like making sure they have access to water when I don't have the lines done yet. All right, come on, ladies, head up to the barn, milking. See if I can get these heifers moved. Oh, no. All right, I can't do it. I'm going to have to undo a gate in order to do what I was going to do. All right, let's just do this. got things tidied up a bit, stirred up a bit. And in fact, I'd already done this once a couple weeks ago, and the manure has started to compost and really heat up since then. That's why we see so much steam when I was moving it that way. So basically I've reduced this pile by, let's see, about 2 excavator size amounts. And I've completely gotten rid of 90% of this pile. So that's good. The rest of the work down here really needs the skid steer and the bucket to kind of get in there up against the wall and move some of this stuff around, because the excavator, unfortunately with the teeth, I'm grabbing too much clay. And that is the problem with doing it on soil. You get stone and clay mixed in, and I'd rather not be spreading a high amount of clay on the fields. Now, I managed to bust the pipe, the hose going here, so that's a problem. So I gotta find a way of fixing that so the cows can get water. But I have unburied that standpipe now. So my thinking is here, in the near future, what I would like, if things can work out, what I would like is not to have so much garbage and manure. That's what I would like. That standpipe is in the wrong place. That was put there in 2022. No, that was put there in 2020. When I first got the excavator, I dug a channel and buried a water line. And back then, this was the Wild West. Back then, the hill was sort of, the gate for the hill was sort of right here, not where it is now, down the hill further. And the barn wasn't here. So this was sort of a yard area here. And I had the standpipe there, figuring it was plenty to have a trough and maybe some water down the hill. Little did I know, it really should have been there at the brow of the hill by a fence post. But that fence and that post didn't exist then. Like I said, this was all, where the barn is, was a steep hill coming down here. And that was kind of terminated out in the Wild West. But now, it's kind of in the way. I could dig it up. I could probably extend it once the manure pile's gone. I could probably add some pipe underground and move it over to there. The only trouble is we now have, and I'm not exactly sure where, I think, well, yeah, I think right here, pretty much. So I have to be careful where I extended that, because I buried the drain line for all the barn roof, and the fresh water coming off the roof and the barn there gets directed down into the pond. So we don't want to include any manure. I don't want to break that line. So yeah, that's going to be a little bit of an issue. For now, I think what the simplest solution is, what I'd like to do, if money were no object, we'd completely pave this whole area and the road and everything. But this is clearly a really good manure handling spot. And if I can get the ramp and the area just outside the barn cemented, then I'll be able to push the effluent right out over. We'll change the gate here, the protective wall, and I'll be able to squeegee the barn right out over. This will be concrete here. And once that concrete is poured, what I would like to do is put some more cement block coming out to where that pipe is. That would protect it. That would put, like, the pipe could be at the end of the wall, so it'd be really hard to hit, couldn't get disturbed. It would just stay there. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, for the time being, until I figure out what happens here, I'm going to use a hose to connect the standpipe to the permanent line going down the hill. And then over time, if we move that or whatever, maybe I'll just connect it to the permanent line. I don't know. But I think that in the near future, if I could get a cement pad there, that will improve the quality of the manure, make it easier to clear in the barn, get some block there to create a corner, because right now I just basically fence that out. Now it is nice to be able to come out of the barn with a scoop of manure and dump it there. But if this were all paved and better quality, easier access, then it wouldn't be so hard to open a gate here and come out of the barn with a scoop and dump it behind that wall, the new block that I'm talking about. So I'm gonna try and call an expert, phone a friend. I've got some barnyard engineering consultants I want to talk to before I permanently decide what to do. But that would improve that. And then eventually pave this area, extend and pave it to out here where, well, I want, not really further down the hill than here. Basically, I want to use this post and go perpendicular that way with a fence, so that nothing can go down the hill and anything that escapes down the hill can't get up the hill. But also I think the same thing will happen if I pour a level slab out to somewhere in here. I'll put a row or two of cement block, and we'll still stack the manure here to compost it. So it'll be pushed out of the barn there, dumped over there, and then worked in a compost pile here. That is feasible, it's doable, it's not a ton of money. It will improve the quality of the manure, keep the stone out of it, keep the soil out of it. So that's long term. For now, though, what I need to do is get this cleaned up once it's dry enough again to get the skid steer in here, and then I'll be able to see things better. I got to clear up all this crap and definitely not let silage wrap get in the manure again, and buckets. I just found two crushed buckets. I did not know they were in the manure pile. They must have blown in there in the winter and then didn't see it when I dumped manure over the wall. So yeah, there's definitely some things that have to improve. All right, I broke the fence line, the electric fence, that blocks off this area, and I also broke the hose. So I got to find a repair kit for that, fix that, because I'm sure the cows will need a drink. The other thing that's going to happen here is I need to get rid of this thorn bush, pare back some of the raspberries, create the fence corner from that post out this way up to the arbor, and make this a little more of a yard here. There's a lot of lumber and detritus, and those big stones need to come out of here. And put in a permanent fence going up there to a gate, a better quality gate. And then the idea is when the parlor's done, or whatever temporary parlor we come up with next, the cows can come out of the back of the barn and through this manure yard, basically, and then down the lane, out the field, or down the hill, or back up and back around into the parlor, rather than having to cut through the barn. So that's the other thing that needs to happen here. This area needs to be free and easy to travel on, not only for cows, but also for me, because that's the way I get the firewood to the back to where the boiler is going to be functioning once I ever get my act together to finish it. Just packing my lunch in my trusty cooler. All right, I'm at Karen's and I am setting up the mower. And we're gonna see if I can cut all of it and rake all of it and bale some of it today. I'm cutting this fully a month earlier than I did last year, and it's looking good. I know that it looks a little brown out there, but underneath everything looks really lush. This will be definitely worth making silage out of this year. Last year I ended up making wrapped hay bales, and I did them a little big, but I'm going to keep these the standard size because I think this is going to be not a heavy crop, but because it's early, almost. Anyway, because I'm making the bales slightly smaller than I did last year. Let's see, I got like 30 bales last year, 30 big 5-footers. So I'm doing these at 4.5 feet, or just slightly over 4, 52 inches, something like that. So, yeah, I'm just gonna get in here and get to it and get this thing mowed off and get back here and rake it as fast as I can. I'm gonna do this first section, mow it all, and then proceed down, because this is the first section I'll have to bale. And the more chance it has to wilt, the better for silage. If it weren't for the rain coming tomorrow night, I wouldn't be doing this so rapidly. I just finished 7 acres in a little over an hour, which isn't bad. I can only go 5 miles an hour because the field conditions are so rough, and I always forget that about this place. Now I do have to watch out where I'm at right now, because I recall last year they left a bunch of pallets out here. I do not want to run over them. Oh, and there's a big mound of soil there too. All right. The mix of grasses is pretty good, and I wouldn't want to cut it any sooner, but I also wouldn't want, there's the pallet right there. I wouldn't want to cut it any later. Another week and this stuff would have gone by too far. Got a nice mix of rye and a good amount of timothy this year. The usual fescues, lots of red and white clover, and a ton of vetch, at least in that last field, which is awesome. That'll provide the protein and nitrogen and energy for the cows for milking this winter. There's the wild strawberries are just right underneath. So I might stop later and have a snack if I see some more again. This next section, I forget how many acres it is. It's divided by a ravine just up here. And I always forget where the best place to turn and mow is. So I'm just going to cut across here. Last year, I think I hit a big pile of stone right here and took out all my mower knives. So I do have to watch that this year. Somewhere right in here. That. And so this other side that I'm up against here is where I almost lost the bales into the ravine last year. So yeah, we do have, it's kind of in and out and in and out. Nothing very good, and there's quite a few ditches along here. So I'm going a little bit slower than I want right now until I remember where there's a ditch right there. Remember where I'm going and what I'm doing, because I cannot afford to hit stone this year. I cannot afford to damage equipment. This is a bonus field. You know, I may not get to hay this in the future, so I'm happy to take it now while I can. I'm grateful for it, but I won't be fertilizing this with urea or manure, because I just don't know if I'll even be able to do a section cut. If I can, well, then I'll be grateful for what I get. these fields would be pretty good if they could be flattened and improved. But that isn't going to happen, I don't think. That last set of, I'm glad I haven't encountered any water right now. The last field there, the 7 acres I just did, was very wet. There's some standing water in places that I may have to avoid. It's the usual condition for these fields. I haven't hayed them. Last year I did, and I hadn't hayed them for a few years before that. That's pretty much what this place is like. It can be very wet. So I'll just have to try not to make any big ruts or gullies. Try and avoid those wet spots when I'm baling, I think. But there is a good breeze, and it's hot and sunny right now. It's 80 degrees. So hopefully everything will dry out a little bit. By the time I'm done mowing, that section there will dry out, and I'll be able to rake it easier. And then by the time I get around to baling it, hopefully that will also be good. Well, it is nice and thick in here, and a lot of vetch and clover, a lot of sensitive fern as well. Now, ferns in general are not good for cows to graze. Certain ferns, like bracken, will kill sheep and calves and give cows hemorrhagic fever or something like that. There's a blood, they bleed. I forget what. But sensitive fern steals niacin from the cows when they graze it fresh. Now, I'm gonna have to do some research of what it's like when it's ensiled. That ensiling typically knocks toxins out of things. And when you make hay and there's a field with a lot of sensitive fern in it, it tends to get very brittle, and when you rake it, it shatters and you don't get a ton of it in the crop. But I have a feeling I'll be baling quite a bit of it. Now, last year I made haylage out of this stuff, and my neighbor's goats ate quite a bit of it. I did feed out quite a bit to the calves and the heifers. No ill effects reported, so hopefully it's just not an issue. A lot of times cows will pick around it, but I have had cows who grazed it, and I've had issues from that. The other thing I don't think I've ever talked about, navigate this, One thing I don't think I've ever talked about is ground nesting birds and wildlife in general. So mowing fields, obviously the grass is tall and you cannot see what's in it, and fawns love to nest and hide in the grass. And it breaks my heart when you mow one. And I've done it, and you never see them in the field. You just don't know. They blend in so well, and all of a sudden, whammo, you're having to put one down and carry it out of the field. Worst case is it would get wrapped up in the forage and sicken cows, because that spoiled meat and everything in the field. You know, it's something I desperately try to avoid. Now, other things like voles and rats and snakes and things get bailed up in forage all the time. They don't seem to be so bad an issue. The ground nesting birds are an issue, though. We have two species here mainly. I don't think the woodcock counts as a ground nester. I can't remember. The woodcock never really showed up here this year, as well as I only just saw my first bobolink. Now, in our field at home, we have not only bobolink, but also killdeer. And fortunately, they choose the field that the cows graze in. And the cows do a pretty good job grazing around the nests. Sometimes they step on eggs. It's a little bit more symbiotic than me mowing them away. Now, I try, if I see bobolinks, you can usually identify where they're nesting if you pay enough attention, and I try and avoid mowing that section. And certainly this time of year, we're almost to July, the chicks are fledgling. I just saw bobolinks on the margin coming out of a nest on the field margin with some chicks that were flying. So yeah, I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to end up doing any damage. Now, I know a lot of landowners are really concerned about bobolinks, especially because they are endangered. Killdeer as well, and I haven't seen any killdeer here. But it is something you have to pay attention to. Every aspect of our life impacts nature. Whether you're planting a garden and you're killing bugs and worms by tilling it, or planting a field and doing that, or you're mowing stuff, or you're, you know, a lot of people, it's a little bit of a challenge around here because you want to leave as much milkweed behind so that the monarchs have something to eat and lay their cocoons in and hatch out. But milkweed is also pretty toxic to sheep and cows. Not so bad to cows, definitely for sheep. So I always try and leave a patch wherever I can so that they have something once the monarchs show up to graze, to eat, whatever. Yeah, so this is something that I don't do lightly. I'll tell you that right now for nothing. Mowing a field, paying attention all the time. It seems like it would be simple, right? You're just going around and around and mowing or whatever, but you're constantly looking for pitfalls, for wildlife, everything out there. Now, in this case, this is a small enough area, I'm just going around and around, but like in that other big field, once I'd come in about 5 passes, I moved to the center of the field and started cutting from the center outwards. That's an old technique from the 19th century. I want to say it was to preserve the life of corncrakes in England, another ground nesting bird, and it's called the corncrake technique of mowing, so that you clear the periphery. That drives the wildlife and birds into the center of the field, and then you cut the center of the field out, and that drives them out to where you've already mowed and it's clear, and you can see them and then get away. So I adopt that wherever possible, because if you keep mowing around and around like I am doing here, eventually you could end up chasing whatever is in the field to the center of the field, and then it's, you know, you're guaranteeing their death and destruction by mowing over them if you're not paying attention. So, gotta pay attention. That is one of the things you know, it looks like I'm just going around and around, but I am constantly looking for stuff. Year to year stuff gets in the field, balloons and all kinds of stuff that you don't want to mow and shred and have it so the cows could eat it. Wet areas forming fields. It's not an easy job, I'll tell you that much. But I am so happy. This crop looks way thicker than I was expecting. So I am very grateful that I am able to be here doing this today. And we have some thunderheads building, and as sunny and warm as it is out, there's a chance of thunderstorms, but hopefully they'll miss us and we won't get a douser. But there is a nice amount of wind on this field right now. With the wind and the sun, everything's going to dry out and wilt this grass. Really nice. So I am glad. I was tempted to start cutting yesterday. I went on a grass measuring walk instead, checked out how wet the fields were, figured on giving it an extra 12 whatever hours to dry out. Because it stopped raining at about 10 yesterday morning, and then got sunny a little afternoon with a breeze. So it has had 24 hours so far to dry out. And this section of the field, I haven't encountered a lot of water at all. Down below may be a different story, down the valley. Certainly the ground is wet, it's damp, but I'm not making horrific marks, which is good, because this is a borrowed field, as it were. It's for sale. So I am doing this at the grace of the realtor, who was super excited that I wanted to cut it again. That saves them having to tidy up the field. All right, we're just closing in on the last couple little triangles in this section, clearing them out, and then I'll start on the bottom third.